In the late 1870s, the Arizona Territory was a land of endless dust, wild winds, and quiet danger. It was a place where dreams and heartbreak walked side by side. Clara Dawson, a young woman from Boston, arrived there after a long and tiring journey. Her hands were calloused from holding the stagecoach seat, and her face was pale from worry. She had come all this way to become a mail-order bride. She carried one small trunk, a few dresses, and a letter that she had read so many times its corners were torn. The letter was from Thomas Clay, a rancher who lived on the far edge of the frontier. His words had sounded gentle. He had promised her a home, safety, and a life where she would never be lonely again. Clara had believed him. She thought that somewhere out in this wide land a man of kindness was waiting for her. But when she finally met Thomas, the dream began to fade. His face was rough and sunburnt, his eyes tired and distant. He did not smile much. His house was plain and cold, built from rough boards and dry earth. The land around it was dry and empty. He spoke little, and when he did, his words carried no warmth. Clara tried to make the place feel like home. She cleaned, cooked, and smiled. But Thomas only nodded or gave short answers. At night, she often sat near the small window and stared at the stars, wondering if she had made a mistake. She had dreamed of adventure, of a man who would see her heart, but all she found was silence and loneliness. One evening, when she asked Thomas about their future, he just said, "We work, we live. That's enough." Something inside her broke that night. She realized she was not free. She had simply traded one cage for another, Boston's narrow life for a dusty home where even love felt like a stranger. A week later, before sunrise, Clara quietly packed her few belongings. She left a short note on the table. Her hands trembled as she wrote, "I'm sorry. I cannot stay." She saddled a horse from the small barn, tied her trunk behind it, and rode away into the early dawn. The desert stretched endlessly before her, red rocks, gray sand, and wind that cut like knives. Still, she rode on, hoping to find a town, a stagecoach, or even a passing wagon that could take her away. But freedom in the desert was harsh. The sun rose high, burning her face. Her lips cracked from thirst. There was no sound except the wind. After hours of riding, her horse stumbled on a rocky slope and fell hard. Clara cried out as she saw the poor animal's leg twisted. Tears filled her eyes. She whispered an apology and set her small bag on her shoulder. With no other choice, she started walking. The desert seemed to go on forever. The heat pressed down and every breath tasted of dust. When the storm clouds gathered, she thought it might be her end. Rain began to pour, cold and heavy, and lightning flashed across the hills. She found shelter beneath a rock cliff, shivering, hugging her knees. The sky roared, and she prayed softly for morning. When the rain finally stopped, the desert turned quiet again. Clara stepped out, her dress torn and her boots soaked. In the distance, she saw movement, shadows on horseback. At first, she thought it was Thomas's men coming to take her back. Fear filled her heart, but as they came closer, she realized these were not cowboys. They were Apache riders, proud, silent, and painted by the desert wind. Clara froze. She had heard stories, terrible stories told by travelers and newspapers, about the Apache. Her heart pounded. She wanted to run, but her legs would not move. The riders stopped a short distance away. One of them dismounted. He was tall and calm, with dark eyes that held both strength and sadness. His name was Taza. He spoke in slow, careful English. "You alone here?" he asked. His voice was not angry, only curious. Clara nodded, her hands shaking. She told him in a trembling voice that she had lost her way, that she came from a ranch to the east. Taza studied her face for a moment, then turned to his men and said something in Apache. Two of them dismounted, offering her water. She hesitated, then drank. The cool water burned her dry throat but brought her back to life. They gave her a piece of bread and motioned for her to follow. They led her to a small Apache camp hidden between the red cliffs. The camp was simple. A few shelters made of branches and animal skins, smoke rising from small fires, and children playing quietly. The people watched her with cautious eyes, not with hate but with curiosity. Some women approached and handed her a blanket. One smiled, showing that not everyone in this land was cruel. That night, Clara sat near the fire. She listened to their songs, soft, rhythmic, filled with a sadness she could not understand. The flames lit Taza's face as he sat across from her, sharpening a knife but glancing up now and then. Finally, he spoke again. "You came from White Man's house?" Clara nodded. "Yes, I was his wife. I ran away." Taza's brow furrowed. "He hurt you?" She looked down, not knowing how to answer. "No," she whispered. "He didn't hit me. But he didn't see me either. He didn't love me. I just felt like I was nothing." Taza looked into the fire for a long time before saying, "Many women feel the same. In my tribe, no woman is owned. She stays if she wants. She leaves if she wishes." His words surprised her. She had never heard a man speak that way. She looked up, and for the first time she felt truly seen. The warmth from the fire reached her heart. Later that night, when she couldn't sleep, she walked a little way from the camp and looked at the sky. The stars were so bright it felt like they were watching her. She thought about Boston, about the lonely ranch, about the road that led her here. She had run from a cage, but now she stood in a place where no one held her back. The next morning, Taza brought her a small bowl of food and said, "Eat. You are free now. The desert takes no prisoners. You can go when you wish." Clara stared at him, surprised. "You're letting me go?" He nodded. "You are not a prisoner. You are a traveler. The desert is wide, but if you stay, we help you find your way." She thanked him, her voice trembling. "You saved me." Taza shook his head. "No one saves anyone. We just walked together for a while." His words stayed with her all day. She helped the women with their chores, carrying water and grinding corn. They laughed softly and showed her how to braid her hair like theirs. For the first time in months, she laughed too. As the sun set, she sat by the fire again, watching Taza teach a small boy how to carve wood. She felt something inside her shift, a quiet peace she hadn't known since leaving home. That night, when Taza said goodnight, she asked him softly, "Why did you help me?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Because you were lost," he said, "and because the desert teaches us no one truly belongs to another. Only to the wind and the sky." Clara smiled faintly, her heart heavy yet light at the same time. She realized that maybe the freedom she had been searching for wasn't a place or a person. It was the courage to see kindness even where she least expected it. As she lay down beneath the star-filled sky, the words Taza had spoken echoed in her mind, "You are free." But deep inside, she wondered what freedom really meant, to keep moving, or to stop and finally belong somewhere. She didn't know it yet, but the next morning, that question would lead her to the moment that would change her life forever. The morning sun painted the desert in soft gold as Clara woke to the sounds of laughter. Children were running between the shelters, their bare feet kicking up dust. The air smelled of smoke and wild herbs. For the first time in a long while, she woke without fear. The Apache camp felt peaceful, as if the world outside did not exist. She helped the women with morning tasks. They showed her how to grind corn with smooth stones, how to weave grasses into baskets, and how to gather berries from nearby bushes. Their language was still strange to her, but smiles and gestures filled the gaps. They accepted her quietly, not as one of them, but not as a stranger either. Taza often passed by, quiet and watchful. He spoke little, but when he did, his words always made her think. One afternoon, when she was carrying water from the stream, he joined her. The water sparkled under the sunlight. Clara thanked him again for saving her life. He looked at her for a moment, then said, "No one owns life. We only help each other carry it." Those simple words stayed in her mind all day. As days turned into weeks, Clara's fear of the Apache faded completely. She learned to start fires, to cook corn cakes, and to ride bareback on a small brown horse that belonged to the tribe. At night, the people sang around the fire, their voices soft and full of feeling. She listened and wondered if she would ever understand the meaning of those songs. Sometimes she saw Taza sitting alone on a hill at sunset, his eyes on the horizon. His face carried a sadness she could not name. She wanted to ask what he was thinking, but she never found the courage. Still, she felt a quiet connection between them, something unspoken but real. One morning, everything changed. Riders appeared in the distance, white men on horses armed and shouting. They were searching for her. Clara's heart sank. The camp stirred with tension as Taza and his men watched from the cliffs. Taza came to her quickly. "They look for you," he said. "Your husband's men, maybe?" Clara nodded, panic in her eyes. "Please, you have to hide me. They'll take me back." Taza's expression did not change. He looked calm, almost too calm. "You said you wanted to be free," he said softly. "Freedom is not hiding. Freedom means you choose your own path, not what others choose for you. His words struck her deeply. She wanted to argue, to beg him to protect her, but she saw the truth in his eyes. The Apache did not believe in cages, not even soft ones made of kindness. The riders came closer, shouting her name. Clara's heart pounded. She hid behind a rock as Taza went to meet them. From a distance, she saw them speak. Their faces were hard, their hands near their guns. But Taza did not flinch. After a while, the riders turned back and rode away. When he returned, Clara ran to him. "What did you say?" she asked. "I told them," he said calmly. "There was no white woman here. Only wind and sand," her eyes filled with tears. "You lied for me." He looked at her with a faint smile. "The desert keeps its secrets." That night, Clara could not sleep. She sat by the fire, watching the flames flicker. The stars above looked endless, like tiny lamps lighting her thoughts. She thought of her old life, of Boston, of the quiet house, of Thomas Clay and his cold eyes. Then she thought of Taza, of the tribe, of the simple kindness she had found here. When the sun rose, she found Taza by the corral, tending to the horses. "You should go soon," he said gently. "The desert is not for everyone. There is a town 3 days east. You can start again." Clara's heart sank. She didn't want to go. "And if I stay?" she asked softly. Taza looked at her with calm eyes. "Then you are not a prisoner," he said. "You are home." The words felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. She stood there for a moment, unsure what to say. Then she nodded slowly. "I don't want to run anymore," she whispered. "I just want peace." He handed her a water pouch and some dried meat for the journey, but she didn't take them. Instead, she said, "Taza, what do you believe love means?" He looked at her for a long moment. The wind moved through his dark hair. "Love," he said slowly, "is not a cage. It is when someone can walk away and you still wish them well. It is when you see the heart before the name." Her eyes glistened with tears. No man had ever spoken to her like that. Later that day, she saddled the same horse she had lost weeks ago, now healed and strong. The whole camp watched quietly as she prepared to leave. Taza stood a few steps away, his arms crossed, his face calm but unreadable. Clara mounted the horse and looked back. "Thank you," she said softly. He gave a small nod. "Go in peace." She turned the horse toward the east and began to ride. The desert stretched before her, silent and endless. The wind carried the faint scent of smoke from the Apache camp. Every hoofbeat echoed in her chest. After some distance, she stopped on a high ridge. Below, she could still see the camp, the small fires glowing like stars on the earth. She felt a pull in her heart, a quiet voice asking her what she truly wanted. She had come so far to find freedom. But now freedom felt lonely. Clara closed her eyes. The wind brushed her face and she thought of Taza's words. "You're free, unless you want love." Her hands trembled as she turned the horse around. She rode back faster and faster, her heart beating like a drum. When she reached the camp, the people turned in surprise. Taza stepped forward, confusion in his eyes. She dismounted, her breath shaking. "You said I was free," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I choose to stay." For the first time she saw him smile, a quiet, gentle smile that carried both relief and warmth. The others watched as he nodded and said, "Then stay. No one will stop you." From that day on, Clara became part of their world. She learned the Apache language, worked beside the women, and taught the children simple words in English. She told them stories from faraway places, of ships, of cities, of snow. In return, they taught her songs of the desert, stories of their ancestors and the ways of the wind. Seasons changed. The desert turned green after rain, then golden again under the summer sun. Clara grew strong and brown from the sun. Sometimes when she looked at her reflection in a stream, she hardly recognized herself. Taza and Clara often rode together through the canyons, talking quietly. He showed her how to find water in dry land, how to read the tracks of animals, and how to listen to the silence. There was something beautiful in that silence. It felt like a language only the heart could hear. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Clara said, "Do you ever think about leaving this place?" Taza shook his head. "The land is part of me. I am part of it. To leave would be like leaving my own shadow." She smiled softly. "Then I will not leave either." Years later, travelers passing through the Arizona desert told a story about a white woman who lived among the Apache, a woman who had once come to escape her past, but found her true home among The people she once feared, they said she was kind, strong and gentle, with eyes that carried both sadness and peace. They said she spoke both English and Apache, and that the children called her the teacher of songs. And always beside her was the man who had found her in the storm, the quiet warrior with calm eyes. They lived simply side by side in a love that needed no words, no promises, no chains, and sometimes when the desert wind blew softly through the valley, people swore they could still hear his voice, carried across the sand, saying the words that had changed her life forever.